During the war, the Covenant had two enemies, humanity and the Banished. While they almost decimated the former, they didn't even come close to the latter. The Banished are set to return in Halo Infinite, and they wish death on humanity. But before we get to that, we must first understand where they came from and who they are. So, my name is SameToken, and to prepare for the upcoming Halo, we'll be uncovering the origins of the Banished. The Covenant Empire was a powerful religious authority that presided over several different species. Atriox, a member of the Jiralhanae race, was born during the Covenant's rule in 2510, joining its military when he came of age. During the Human Covenant War, Atriox served alongside his fellow Jiralhanae, eventually being thrust into the front lines. 40 at a time, they would be used as expendable muscle in suicide missions. Their commanders told them that dying in this war would speed up their holy journey, a religion that wasn't even their own. However, time and time again, 39 Jiralhanae would die, and Atriox would return. The sole survivor of each mission, Atriox became legend. However, as his comrades fell around him, Atriox's resentment of the Covenant grew fierce. His mythical status among his peers worried his Sangheli commander. Jiralhanae were not supposed to live this long. Their quick deaths prevented them from questioning the Covenant, questioning why they are dying in the first place. But Atriox was surviving, and his commander knew his loyalty was faltering. This troubled the Prophet of Truth, who decided that to keep the peace among the Jiralhanae, Atriox must die, quietly, so as to prevent him from becoming a martyr. And so, while out on a mission, Atriox began questioning his allegiance to the Covenant, and this prompted one of his Jiralhanae brethren to become enraged, considering this heresy. He attempted to assassinate Atriox, but this failed, ending in Atriox killing him. Upon his return to camp, Atriox was apprehended by Sangheli for the murder of one of his own. Atriox defended his actions, pleading self-defense, but the Sangheli believed this to be a lie and immediately sentenced him to death. But Atriox refused this verdict and fought back, killing his executioner. The other Sangheli prepared to attack him, but the Jiralhanae, who were watching, leapt to defend Atriox, slaughtering all of the Sangheli. Atriox and the others had been banished, and his successful defiance was inspiring. Other Jiralhanae joined him, taking control of the perished Sangheli's ship and salvaging everything they could use. While some joined his troop with the intention of assassinating him, likely still believing in the ideologies of the Covenant, they were soon weeded out. Decimus, who had been the first to join Atriox at his sentencing, became his right-hand Jiralhanae. They became pirates, using stolen ships to plunder Covenant and eventually human resources, not only for survival, but to expand their influence across the galaxy. They grew in strength with each attack while gathering killers and mercenaries to their cause. The Covenant now had two targets during the war, humanity and the Banished. Atriox was separating from the Jiralhanae's old ways, where traditionally they saw power in the ranks as a threat. Atriox saw opportunity. He formed alliances with many who initially sought to kill him. After the Covenant's Great Schism, which saw the Jiralhanae ordered to murder the Sangheli, a great hatred of the Jiralhanae grew. Yet, as the Banished had already left the Covenant before this, Atriox was able to convert many Sangheli to his cause. Following the demise of the Covenant Empire in 2552, Atriox salvaged their vast stores of weapons and equipment while accumulating soldiers who lost their ideology with the fall of the prophets. This left a vast power vacuum for the Banished to fill. He began by raiding a Sangheli separatist base, prompting their assault carrier, Enduring Conviction, to apprehend him. Shipmaster Let Valir and his troops found Atriox in their armory, yet he allowed himself to be captured. When Sangheli reinforcement ships arrived, they asked, enduring conviction, whether they had successfully captured Atriox. But just as Let Valir was about to answer, Atriox stopped him. He said that he had spared as many of their crew as he could during the raid on their base, and then he asked Let Valir to tell the other ships he had indeed been captured. This whole time, Atriox had planned to be captured by the enduring conviction. He was tiring of his Banished being thieves and pirates. Atriox had greater plans, but to help fill the Covenant's power vacuum, he needed a powerful ship. He knew Let Valir didn't have much of a cause left, and that he cared only to support his ship and crew. Atriox promised him that he would supply his ship and crew with the resources they need, and in exchange, he expected their allegiance to the Banished. Let Valir quickly came around and joined the Banished, slip-spacing away from the rest of his fleet. By 2553, the Banished had already garnered a fearsome reputation among those aware of their existence, but they would continue to be relentless in their expansion. Five years later, in 2558, the Banished traveled to the Ark, the Forerunner megastructure located thousands of light years outside the Milky Way. Here, the final battle of the Human Covenant War took place, with humanity ultimately toppling the Covenant, while also eliminating the Flood's Gravemind. In the aftermath, with the portal to the Ark on Earth, humanity's UNSC began setting up research outposts. These outposts and the Ark's systems were unaffected by the rise of Cortana's created, as the Ark enacted failsafes to lock them out. However, this did not stop the Banished. They knew there would be vast amounts of salvage on the Ark's surface. All the weapons, vehicles, and resources left behind by fallen Covenant and UNSC forces was ripe for the taking. And so, Atriox and his right-hand man, Decimus, initiated mass salvage operations. Meanwhile, Atriox laid siege on the UNSC research outposts, slaughtering their scientists while taking over the Ark's cartographer, which gave them access to the Ark's portal network, which ultimately let them close the Ark's portal on Earth. However, this was not without retaliation from the Ark's sentinels, which kept fighting back. Soon after, the UNSC ship, Spirit of Fire, mysteriously appeared, drifting towards the Ark. Atriox noticed they sent soldiers towards a research outpost, and so he traveled there with his Banished. Inside the facility, he found Spartans. Taking them by surprise, he began pummeling them, shrugging off knives and bullets. Ultimately besting the Spartans, he decided to toy with them, letting them run while they were chased by his forces. Thus began a large-scale conflict between the humans on the Spirit of Fire and the Banished who occupied the Ark. The humans quickly became a nuisance. First, the Spirit of Fire began an assault against a Banished salvage operation. Decimus attempted to stop them in person, but failed. And in a last-ditch attempt, he bombarded his own base, killing human and Banished forces indiscriminately. Yet, their salvage operation still grounded to a halt. Then, the Spirit of Fire began a campaign to take the Ark's cartographer. They took over the control towers and destroyed the Ark's conduits that were powering the cartographer's shields. At the same time, after killing Decimus, they destroyed Atriox's key controller for the portal network, crippling the Banished's ability to quickly deploy troops. In response, the Banished went on the offensive, launching their own campaign to take the final portal controller. However, the humans were waiting for them, holding back their waves, and, in desperation, a scarab was deployed. But this was fruitless, forcing the Banished to withdraw. The humans were proving a powerful adversary, and so Atriox launched a large-scale attack on their ship, almost breaching its hull while destroying many of its defensive weapons. With the Banished's enduring conviction dwarfing the Spirit of Fire, it successfully barraged their ship. However, the humans managed to immobilize the Enduring Conviction using the Ark's particle cannons. They then infiltrated a Banished compound to board the ship. While this was not immediately concerning, their plan would ultimately devastate the Enduring Conviction. Hacking into the ship's systems, the humans activated its energy projector, firing it at the Ark's surface. This caused the Ark Sentinels to retaliate, slicing the Enduring Conviction in half. Shipmaster Let'Velir survived, meeting with Atriox on the ground to discuss their response. The Sangheili made it clear that they should both honor their contract, with Atriox funding and supporting them with their loyalty in return. As they spoke, they witnessed the humans releasing a deactivated halo ring from the Ark's foundry. Atriox demanded Let'Velir to prove that he is worth his price by sending all his troops onto the ring and taking it from the humans. While the Banished sent as many troops as they could towards the ring, they were met with heavy human resistance, with a Spartan stealing one of their scarabs. Ultimately, the humans managed to stop the Banished from reaching the ring by destroying the portal they were using. Despite this, the Banished managed to gain a foothold in the ring's control room. However, this was short-lived, as the humans aggressively pushed through their defenses. As they came concerningly close, Atriox decided to offer them a deal. He would let them live if they left immediately. But the Spirit of Fire's Captain Cutter refused, severing communications. Atriox's message showed the humans his hand. He knew he was close to losing the ring. Eventually, the Banished forces lost to the humans, who pushed into the control room. Yet Atriox was not ready to give up. The Banished kept attempting to force their way back into the control room, sending everything they could. But this was not enough, and ultimately, humanity assumed full control of the ring, physically ejecting the Banished off its surface and into space. The human scientist, Professor Anders, opened a slip space portal and traveled through it with the ring, leaving behind the Spirit of Fire and her crew, in addition to a furious Atriox. The fight would continue between the Banished and the Spirit of Fire. Now the Enduring Conviction was destroyed, the playing field has been slightly tilted, but Atriox's army remained vast. As the fight with the Spirit of Fire continued across the Ark for months, the Banished continued its salvage operations. With the once Covenant capital, High Charity, having crashed on the Ark during the Human-Covenant War, Atriox believed there would be a wealth of resources in the surrounding area. Jiralhanae warlord Pavium and the Banished Lieutenant Voridus were ordered to scout the shell of the fallen Covenant capital with strict instructions not to enter. However, Pavium had concerns that Voridus would try to prove himself and as a result fail as he has done before. Regardless, they mobilized their troops towards High Charity's carcass. As they approached, Pavium noticed that sentinels were surrounding it and that they appeared to be guarding rather than protecting something that lied within. He believed that perhaps what was inside was the parasitic flood. Voridus was skeptical, however, believing the stories of the parasite to be Covenant propaganda. After pushing through the sentinels with a scarab, Voridus sliced open High Charity's hull and proceeded to send in his troops against Atriox's orders. As Pavium had feared, Voridus was seeking glory. Inside, Voridus's troops encountered a lone flood pod infector. It was easily killed, but then strange noises began emanating around the hole they had entered. The pod infector had not been alone, and they were already too deep inside to escape the horrors that would consume and reanimate their corpses. Waiting outside, Voridus and his troops began hearing the same strange noises coming from within High Charity's cavity. And then, out stepped one of their fallen comrades, twisted by the flood. It didn't take long for them to realize that they had to prepare. Voridus's comms fell silent. Initially, Pavium did not think this unusual. But as he prepared a salvage route with his own troops, Voridus, broken up by interference, contacted Pavium, warning him to immediately extract his troops. It was not long until Pavium saw flood pod carriers spilling from every direction. Voridus had released an unimaginably powerful parasite, one he had thought just a rumor. Not wishing to abandon Voridus and his troops, Pavium held the line to ensure as many evacuated as possible. But Voridus' crew could not make it, as he was forced towards the entrance of a Forerunner structure. As Voridus' engineers believed it to be connected to the Ark's defenses, Pavium ordered Voridus to enter and start them up. However, Voridus struggled to pass through the flood forms, blocking their way, noting that it was as if the parasite knew it would be a threat to them. Pavium realized they could use explosive fissures that were appearing in the area to overload one of their salvage drills and burn the flood away. This was highly successful, allowing Voridus and his troops to enter the facility. Inside, they managed to activate the Sentinel defenses. However, on the surface, a giant flood form had appeared, overrunning one of their bases. Large tentacles started ripping through the ground around them as they traveled across the surface. This signified that the flood was creating a Gravemind. Left unchecked, this proto-Gravemind would become unstoppable. This excited Voridus, believing that they would become legends for defeating such a beast. But Pavium understood the seriousness of the situation. If they failed to destroy this Gravemind, there would be no one left to tell their story, and no one left to hear it. As a result, Pavium decided to contact Atriox and inform him of what had occurred. Atriox was furious. Pavium and Voridus were ordered to clean up the mess before his arrival, and so they commanded their troops towards the source of the tentacles, eventually finding the fledgling Gravemind. Using hit-and-run tactics, Pavium and Voridus' troops destroyed the unusual sacks of eggs around the Gravemind, exposing its internals, which they then began barraging with everything they had. But this simply wasn't enough. And so, Pavium reluctantly instructed his troops to activate Sentinel reinforcements. With this, they managed to topple the Gravemind, killing it and thus severing its connection with the flood. Just as they eliminated the infestation, Atriox arrived. While he was still not pleased, he was impressed enough by their actions to let them live. His final instruction was to clean up their mess, after which he would continue his campaign against the Spirit of Fire. But the Banished had forces across the galaxy, and the Ark wasn't their only target.
The hour approaches. Forces occupy the ring. Within hours, it will be under our control. Humanity will burn. Their brazen defiance will be all but a memory. No more prophets. No more lies.
And so, the Banished formed due to the oppression imposed by the Covenant. Jiralhanae had been sacrificed for ideologies that weren't even their own. But Atriox saved them, initially making them pirates, but then expanding into a force to be reckoned with. They assimilated several species, including many Sanghili and Lekolo. Interestingly, we see no inherent hatred for humanity, except of those who get in the way of their plans, namely a certain Spirit of Fire, and of course all those innocent scientists. But with the message from the Banished sent from a halo ring, wishing humanity to burn, we see that they are now out specifically for human blood. Exactly why this is, and why they do not wish to accumulate humanity in their ranks, remains to be seen. After all, they have been in touch with the human black market in the past. Perhaps it is because they have not heard from Atriox and assume the humans killed him on the Ark. Or when they say humanity, they really mean UNSC. Or maybe they're upset at the whole Cortana thing that threatens everyone in the galaxy. But soon, with Halo Infinite, we will uncover what lies ahead for the Banished and their seemingly poor relationship with humanity as a whole. So, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this, please leave a like and subscribe for more Halo videos. I have finally completed university and have several videos in the pipeline that I'm really excited to share with you. If you have anything in particular you'd like to see, please let me know in the comments. Stay safe, and I'll catch you next time.